Um, Good day, learners. Today we'll be carrying on our apartheid lecture, right? Um, so you're gonna take out your textbook and you're gonna open to page 232, right? Chapter 5.2, which is segregation after the formation of the union. So segregation that took place between the the, the three races after the formation of the union. Which union? We're talking about the Union of South Africa, right? So we're going to start there on the Union of South Africa. So basically that's the main focus right now. Behind me I got a chapter here, which have subheadings, but then I'll elaborate more as we further the topic on these subtopics. Okay. So now, how did the segregation lay foundations of apartheid in 1930s and 1940s, right? The creation of the Union of South Africa on 31 May 1910 led to a new phase in South African history, right? Remember, South Africa was just a country whereby there were tribal, whereby there were tribes, to be precise, sorry, whereby there were tribes, right? Like, there were no boundaries, like each race or a certain race should belong to a certain place. But after the formation of the Union, now the emphasis of segregation were implemented, right? So, before the establishment of the Union of South Africa, the British and the Boers were engaged in an Anglo-Boer War, or the South African War of Independence, as it is mostly commonly referred to in the modern South African society. So when the British arrived in South Africa, where did they land? They landed in the Cape, right? Who were in the Cape at that time? It was the Boers, right? Who? The Afrikaners, right? So that created a conflict because they were the original inhabitant of that area. So when the British came, they wanted to take over. So the Boers were like, no, we're not going to allow this. So they got into a conflict, right? That conflict today is known as the South African War. In history books, it is referred to as the Anglo-Boer War, right? For the first time in South Africa, was united into a single state known as the Union of South Africa, right? Okay, let us hear more about the Union of South Africa. The four colonies of Transvaal, Orange Free State, Natal, and the Cape of Good Hope. Transvaal, Orange Free State, Natal, right, where the Zulus were, Orange Free State and Transvaal, the Boers, and Cape of Good Hope were granted self-rule by Britain. Now we're granting you independence. You can now do as you please. You can rule yourself, right? The Union split control of the country between the British and the Afrikaners, right? Resulting in the black population having very few rights. So the British granted these rights, but then they were like, no, it's us, British and the Afrikaners, people who are going to have more power. That is why they say black people ended up having few rights, right? In most cases, black people were like, are always, you know, in a disadvantage, some sort of, right? Racial segregation became official policy throughout the Union and laid the foundations of apartheid. So, if you can hear clearly what they're saying is that discrimination was made illegal, right? Not only blacks were excluded from the system, but no allowance was made to include them later, right? Like they were never given any of the privilege, and even in future they were never gonna be included. The reason why, if you check in most cases or in other African history or like in other countries, blacks were like only a property of the white minority. Like you're just a subject, you do whatever I tell you at a certain point in time. Okay? Therefore, from 1910 to 1948, blacks have tried to win political rights, but to no avail, and they have reacted to white decisions to control them. Their attempt to win political rights will be explored further on this chapter. Right? Under the Union of South Africa became a self-governing dominion of Australia and Canada. It was a unitary. Under the Union of South Africa became a self-governing dominion of the British Empire and was part of the British Commonwealth. What is British Commonwealth? British Commonwealth is a voluntary political community founded for common good and is composed of former members of British Empire. So the British were here to explore South Africa. Here we got minerals, we got resources, natural resources, right? So it was a British Commonwealth. Unlike Australia and Canada, it was a unitary state rather than a federation, right? Rather than a federation. A federation, a group of states with a central government but independent with internal affairs, right? In the first 2 decades of the Union, segregation became a distinctive feature of political, economic, and social life as whites looked for a way to address the native question. The Union government from 1910 up to 19 passed a barrage of laws which aimed at regulating class and race relations during a period of rapid industrialization in South Africa when the black population was growing steadily. So they started passing laws of segregation. Okay. They started passing laws of segregation like you blacks. Okay. It's depending which race you are, and then there are laws that would either liberate you or oppress you. As blacks, you are oppressed. As other race, you are liberated. Okay. So now moving on to this part here. It's segregation here. So under segregation you got all these subheadings under segregation. Okay. First we have definition here. Right? What do they say? Definition. It is a political and social system. We're defining segregation here. Right? It is a political and social system designed to keep groups separate. Blacks aside, Indians aside, Afrikaners aside, British aside, right? They should occupy different regions according to their skin color, right? The aim of segregation in South Africa was to ensure the preservation of white political power, dominance, and control of the labor market. As I said earlier on, they were here to explore it, to exploit this country. Right, now here, aims. Right, moving on, the roots of segregation. Right, in the mid-17th century, white settlers in Netherlands arrived at the Cape, and the San and the Khoi became dispossessed of land and livestock by the settlers who used their superior armed force to crush the resistance. So the Khoisan were using spears, napiers and stuff, and the British were shooting. Obviously they were going to win the war, right? The impact of mineral discoveries, right? Diamonds and gold. Diamonds and gold were discovered in South Africa in 1870 and 1886, respectively, and 10 years later there were about 100,000 mine workers on the Witwatersrand. This led to a rapid industrialization of South African economy. Right. The migrant labor system was enforced in South Africa. This system proved to be the cheapest form of labor supply. Minimum standards of accommodation was supplied to the miners. Low wages were paid to miners. Obviously, who were working in those mines? Black people. And then what they were paid? They were paid peanuts. Cheap labor. Right? The result of colonial conquest and mineral discoveries was white ownership of most of the land and mineral wealth of the country. If even nowadays, if you look, like most of white people own big lands, like huge landscapes, like in economy wise, like the more financially stable, right? It's because of history. History led it to. It's still like we're still in a transition zone today of what was history like. It's more like we're a turning point, right? We're in a turning point. After Union, a unitary white minority regime was consolidated, and the outcome of this was a racially segregated society with the white domination in land ownership, the legal system, the distribution of wealth, administration, and other spheres. So for today, we're gonna end here. When we meet again, we'll be talking about the segregatory laws. Thank you.